Well, we missed out last night, folks, but buenas noches, WNBA and LA Sparks fans. I know we missed out last night on Cinco de Mayo because there was a bit of a glitch with the servers on YouTube last night, so we were unable, folks, to broadcast with you folks live last night, but we will take the rain check and come on back here. Welcome back, fans, to the 24/7, 365 comprehensive home of the WNBA and your two-time WNBA champion LA Sparks. This is Sparks 365, the flagship show here on the network, alongside Chris Mancy from the Anaheim Studios up in Anaheim, California. Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego. Chris, good evening. I know we missed out last night because YouTube was for the loss last night with the upload feature. They had a couple of glitches and errors last night, but glad that we got the issues resolved, man. We're back here on the network, and almost time to get rolling with the season, man. How's it going?
Nothing much. I'm just so pumped up because now is exactly my favorite players' days until the season. 10 days until the season. I'm just so pumped up.
Now, real quick, Chris, is that your actual favorite player or the player that everyone keeps calling you at work? Just as a quick disclaimer.
No, my favorite player, Lindsey Harding.
Okay, just wanted to clean that up real quick on aisle Chris. Folks, we are also pumped here at the LA Sparks 365 Network here, folks. We will be releasing the 4 new shows that will make their debut on the network. We have 3 debuting on May 16th and 1 debuting on May 18th, folks. So stay tuned during all 3 of our shows tonight, folks, and we will get to the shows that we're going to be releasing. We're going to be releasing one show by show. And joining us, folks, in the Hangout, Kern, she pops on in here at right on time, is, of course, our new Sparks 365 correspondent, Shorty Mamba 24 on Twitter. Shorty, good evening. Thanks for joining us, and how's it going tonight?
It's a great night so far, and happy to be a guest on the show again, ready to talk WNBA and Sparks basketball.
Absolutely. We are just as excited as you are, Shorties. We just talked about before you hopped in. Again, we have 3 new shows, folks, debuting on May 16th and one that will debut on Sunday, May 18th. But, guys, we'll get to some of our opening tip-off headlines here, which, of course, will begin with Saturday. The Sparks kick off their 2-game preseason schedule this upcoming Saturday, May 10th at 2 p.m., of course, against the Chinese National Women's Olympic Basketball Team at the Lake Arena on the campus of LA Southwest College. But before the game starts, they're there early enough because pregame activities will begin at 12:30 p.m. At LA Southwest College. Now, again, guys, we talked about this earlier, I believe last weekend, about this experience. But, Shorty, we'll go with you because we're going to use the old rule here of ladies first now in the Hangouts whenever you or Lex or any of our female companions join us here. But, again, Shorty, what are you right now is what are you banking on and what are you sort of thinking about come this preseason game more so? Is it more so have the vets play maybe a quarter or a half and then basically put in all the reserves after that? Or what is your thought process right now for these upcoming few preseason tilts coming up this upcoming weekend?
I think definitely the coaching staff will have all eyes on the rookies, so they'll definitely get more playing time. As for the vets, considering who's currently back at the moment, we still haven't heard anything of Candace, KT, or J-Lab being in the States. But if they are, it's most likely that they won't be playing.
I would agree totally. I think they're going to use the 2 games, I think, to rest because I think this is the longest I think that we've waited for 3 of those players to come back from overseas commitments. Chris, what are you thinking about right now? Because this game is a preseason game. There's no value in playing your starters the whole 40 minutes. You're going to play them maybe either a quarter or a half, and they're going to say, okay, take a seat, and then go to the locker room, shower, and go grab some food or something, and come back perhaps. But Chris, what are you thinking about though come Saturday though with this game with the Chinese national team?
They'll probably just play maybe just a quarter and that's it, or maybe mostly just a half, and that'll be it, and then they just rest.
We've already had a few preseason games in progress since last week. We've had preseason games starting, and what I've seen from the game statistical records on the league website is a lot of the vets are either coach positions are either DMPs because of the coach's discretion, injuries, or overseas commitments. So In my view, Shorty, I don't think I really see any major names. I don't think I see Candace Parker playing. I don't see Tolliver playing, and I don't see Lavender playing because they may not be back in time to play on Saturday. And if they do come back either tomorrow or Thursday, they're going to be hell bent out of shape from the jet lag. So I wouldn't count on seeing the regulars play Saturday. They might play Sunday, though, in Seattle, I think. But, I mean, what do you think, though? I mean, is there a chance, though, that any of the major marquee names for the Sparks play at all in those two games at all this upcoming weekend?
I would say no. Now, in regards to Saturday's game, most likely I'd say third-year player Nneka Gumike will most definitely play. But as far as CP, they'll most likely sit her out for the preseason games, for both preseason games. Her and KT. Lav, if she doesn't play Saturday, she may play in the second preseason game against the Storm. But as right now, I know KT and Candace Parker, they will not be playing in any preseason games at all.
Yes, I would agree totally. I think you're going to rest those bodies, your two prominent players right now between Ace and KT as well. In my view, I think the starting five, in my view, is going to probably be, it'll be Nneka starting in center more than likely. Then you'll have Lindsey Harding. Then you'll probably have Wiggins in there. Maybe a few bench players will probably start too, and because you're going to have to fill the void for Candace Parker and for Tolliver. So in my view, I think Ice gets the start. I think it'll be, Beard and Lindsey Harding as the guards. You'll probably have Wiggins at forward and or a guard. So, I mean, there's a lot of options to roll in. Chris, what do you think, though, about who's in and who's out, though, for these upcoming two games?
Just like Shorty said, I see KT and Candace Parker not playing in both preseason games since they've been playing overseas and not in time for their preseason. It's just only preseason games. Doesn't even count. They need a rest for the regular season. And I see probably just their third vet playing in the two preseason games.
Again, I'm going to go back to my initial point here, folks, real quick once more, is I think this is the longest that I can recall, at least in previous years, that Candace Parker has been gone this long over Andi Katteringberg. Because the only reason why I say that, folks, is because this is, I think, one of those years where it's such the early start to the season, where it's starting on May 16th and not late May or over Memorial Day weekend that this has happened. And I think that this is probably the longest that I can at least recall in recent memory, folks, which again is about 11 years of the WNBA, that I know of at least of seeing Candace Parker come back so late from Russia. Because again, Shorty, we're not used to having the season start this soon because we know about the FIBA World Championships in late August and September. But normally, I mean, she's back by now and rehabbing, but now that the season's starting so soon, in 10 days in Seattle, I think this is the latest that she's coming to camp, and we know about what's happening next year with these players that come in late to camp is going to be, having to fork out some money, it sounds like. What can you tell us about next year as far as overseas fines, it sounds like, the players that are coming back late for training camp? What can you tell us about that?
Well, this was implemented in the new collective bargaining agreement that the players and the owners signed this year. And a new rule that's implemented within the CBA is that the WNBA will be allowed to fine players who miss any preseason games or training camp, or come into a training camp late next season.
Chris, I think you and I ranted and raved on this topic a few weeks ago. How it's like, Chris, in your mind again, is how can the WNBA get off the hook with this issue, Chris? Because like we talked about, man, the players can't control how dominant their franchise is overseas, and here you're going to penalize the player in a team sport, $50,000, which is a lot of money for the average WNBA player, Chris. So again, how can the league get off by putting in these harsh that play overseas?
I don't know, just not a good idea because they can't control how their team is doing overseas, and just hurting the player and the team.
I mean, you know, this is a real head scratcher. You know, I do this a lot because I got bad dandruff on in my hair, folks, and I got to use Head and Shoulders for Men. You know, the 7 benefits in one bottle that C.J. Wilson, the Angels, advertised a lot. But this one is a bigger head scratcher because the WNBA is like the only league, Shorty, that I know of that would fine a player for being late to training camp. Where, in my view, players that are overseas, and I told this to Chris too on the show a few weeks ago, Shorty, that in my view, players that are overseas should be excluded from training camp. And that should be their rehab camp, you know, to actually sit on the trainer's table and give the treatment that they really need. Because, I mean, it'd be, you know, in my view, it's useless to play a whole season overseas, come all the way back to Los Angeles, and then go right back into the mix of, you know, practicing again and just, you know, tiring out the body even more. When in my view, I mean, in my view at least, what I recall last season on the Backstage Sparks on TWC Sportsnet was the feature on Candace Parker when she came to camp was ice packs on the knees, arrowhead water in hand, and static stretching drills and rehabbing with Courtney Watson. But this year it's going to be, you know, come back here and get back on the court and, you know, probably get injured, it sounds like now. But again, Shorty, I know that Chris and I talk about this, but Shorty, in your mind though, how can the WNBA in your mind get off the hook with this sort of thing that they're penalizing a player for? I know they're playing overseas, though, Shorty, but what if it's like Candace and Sandrine that are on teams like Ekaterinburg that just seem to dominate year after year and go deep into the postseason?
Most definitely agree that the rule makes no sense. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like you guys have said, players cannot control when their overseas teams will allow them to, you know, go and release them back into the States. So to find them over that doesn't make any sense. And also, sadly, I would say maybe in the future this rule may lead to more injuries for players as they have to quickly come back from their overseas team straight into the WNBA.
Chris, in my view, the WNBA here is asking for trouble. I mean, with this implication in the CBA, like Shorty just said, Chris, and I totally agree, you're asking for trouble for the marquee superstars of half of the WNBA, which would include Los Angeles, includes Phoenix, includes Minnesota, Seattle, among notable teams, Chris. Because you look at it, you have Candace, you have Diana Taurasi, you've got Sue Bird with Ekaterinburg, you've got Maya Moore playing in China. So, Chris, you know, this is, in my view, Chris, this is going to, you know, result in a superstar being out for the season with a torn ACL, an Achilles injury, or a busted knee, or some injury, Chris, caused by this rule that I think is a bunch of Oscar Mayer baloney. Because this should be implemented in any sport. That, you know, if they're going to play overseas and then they come back here for training camp and something like this happens. I mean, Chris, this rule is not only going to hurt the WNBA, Chris. It's going to hurt a team in the very near future, sometime very quick.
Yep, agreed.
So again, folks, we will have more on this probably tomorrow night or sometime later down the road. Okay, guys, going to get to some more topics here in regards to the Sparks from Sparks.com. Before the 2014 season has begun, 4 players have already have the taste of a championship. Congratulations to Candace Parker, Sandrine Gruda, Jantel Lavender, and Candice Wiggins on their overseas titles. Sparks guard Christy Tolliver deserves recognition on a great overseas season and a postseason run. Joining a Sparks group 1 week in the training camp, Parker, Gruda, Lavender, Wiggins, and Tolliver now have their sights set on Los Angeles and bringing the city their 3rd WNBA championship. Here's a look at how the 5 players did and how they claimed their international honors and what fans can look forward to this season. We'll start with Jantel Lavender playing over in Poland. Lavender and Wisla captured the BKL title on Sunday, April 27th, with a 3 games to 2 series win over rival and defending champ Triple C Polka Wheat. Game 5 saw Lavender points grab a season high 17 rebounds. Over the course of the season, the center averaged 16 points and 9.6 rebounds per game, while shooting .547 from the field. In Lavender's first season with Wisla, the team also captured the Polish Cup. She already has garnered early awards that include a first-team selection of the year and import of the year honors. Shorty, we're going to go to you again because we're using the old-fashioned rule here of ladies first here in the Hangouts. Again, is A lot of people, Shorty, are claiming this to be Jantel Lavender's breakout season. Now, the numbers overseas speak for themselves, but Shorty, it's only if she can find consistent playing time. Now, we know she did a great job when Candace Parker went down with her All-Star Game wrist injury. In your mind, though, with these numbers, can they translate Shorty back to the WNBA this season at all for J-Lav, or what's going to happen with her being on the bench?
I definitely do think her overseas numbers can translate into this season. Heading with the Sparks, I believe Jantel will definitely have an even bigger season than she did in her year last year with the Sparks.
Chris, again, we talked a lot, man, about how the bench players that were still here, like Mathis and O'Hay and Jantel, and who were playing overseas, Chris, and putting up these ridiculous sort of numbers. Now it's just a matter of can they, can they translate that from overseas back to Los Angeles? What do you think?
I think it's gonna be probably hard, but I think they could do it from overseas and turn it into the season.
All right, so Jantel will go over now to the reigning WNBA MVP and Candace Parker. Parker and Sandrine Gruda wrapped up UMMC Katerinburg's sixth straight Russian PBL title Tuesday, April 29th, with a sweep of Orenburg. Over the three-game series, the Cat averaged margin of victory was 16 points per game. A double-double in the 63-58 Game 3 victory, scoring 16 and pulling down 11 while adding 3 blocks and 4 steals. For the season, he secured PBL Player of the Year and Import of the Year honors, making the All-Russian PBL first team. As far as Sandrine Gruda led the scoring effort with 24 points while grabbing 9 rebounds. The 24 points in the clincher was a high for Gruda, who, along with Parker, averaged over 15 points per game for Ekaterinburg. Gruda also won the Bozeman Player of the Year award and made it the All-Bozeman team and All-Russian PBL second team for her efforts. Shorty, I've noticed this in the past is teams in the WNBA have their little dynamic duo and or two-headed monster, which would include Lauren Jackson and Sue Bird in Seattle, DT and BG in Phoenix. And now, Shorty, I think you have it here now in LA with Candace Parker and Sandrine Gruda. Those two are going to be two hard-nosed players that, have played a lot, in Ekaterinburg, and that is a good sign. You're bringing in two players that know each other very well, that they know their style of game, Shorty, and those numbers speak for themselves. Sandrine dropping 24, Candace with a double-double. What do you think here, though, about this possible dynamic duo now brewing in Los Angeles between Ace 3 and Sandrine?
I love the chemistry that CP and Gruda has gained over the years with each other, and I think that will definitely translate into the WNBA with the Sparks this season. They both they know each other very well, and even last year they both led the team to a EuroLeague title. So I definitely think their chemistry will benefit the team this year.
Chris, we know about everything about Candace Parker. Everything that she's done in the WNBA, a lot of all the accomplishments and stuff, just waiting to cross off that WNBA title off her checklist of things to accomplish. But now, Chris, now that you got Parker and now you got Sandrine Gruda, Chris, and this is probably, Chris, a dynamic duo and/or two-headed monster, in the blueprint stage right now in Los Angeles, Chris. And I think that's something that the Sparks have left in years is something like this of a two dynamic players. I think the last one I can recall at least, I think, was either Candace and Lisa or Lisa and DMJ back in the 2000s, Chris. What are you making about this possible duo here between Gruda and Ace 3?
It's going to be a great dynamic duo between Candace Parker and Gruda, playing overseas, and they keep it together, playing in Los Angeles, and yeah.
Shorty, I say this, I said this, I think, on one of our last shows, I think that Chris and I did, I think the move here to bring Sandrine to LA, I think, with their history of her and Candace playing overseas in Russia, the way I view it is, is if you have two players, or in the Cats' case, you got three of them plus, or you got four of them between Candace and Sandrine plus Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, is if you're able to have those players and then you bring them to the States, they already have that chemistry. They know what they know what each other are going to do on the court. Stuff like they already know their game inside and out. So I think now that you've brought Candace and Sandrine together, now it's them sort of, I think, that's chemistry there, but now it's just, I think, right now, having the whole team gel as a unit now, Shorty. So, I mean, what do you make right now, again? Because you're bringing two players that know each other very well from ECAT. Now they're together on the same team. So what do you think that those two, specifically, Candace, Parker, and Sandrine, bring to the table for the Sparks this season?
I think, they'll definitely bring, what they, have combined together overseas back to the States here in LA. And I definitely love the trade in March that LA did with the Connecticut Sun to bring Sandrine Gruda here to Los Angeles. We know that there are some concerns with her because Gruda has not played in the WNBA since 2010. And, people were just wondering, if she would return to the league and be the same dominant player she once was. But I think she will because she is coming to a team that she definitely wants to be here. She wants to play here alongside her good friend Candace. So I think good things are coming this way for the Sparks this year.
Chris, you know that Sandrine and Candace have that little, bromance is what you'd call it for us two, but I think it'd be, something to that effect for the female side of things, Chris, because, I mean, if you notice that Sandrine's in that Instagram video that we've been playing in our off-air hangouts with the snowstorm over in the cab when they had their last game. But again, Chris, it's taking all that, the laughter and stuff that they have, and then, of course, their on-court game, Chris, it's bringing all that stuff, and that's, that's their little click and chemistry. But again, Chris, it's bringing all that to LA and then having it sort of spread around across the whole team, man. So, I mean, what do you think here again about what Parker and who will bring to the team this year?
Gonna bring to great chemistry to the Sparks, great laughter and everything.
All right, folks, we're going to get to some WNBA action real quick. Two finals from tonight in the preseason scoreboard, Mystics 80 and the Fever 63. And then also tonight, Tulsa Shock edged the San Antonio Stars 76-75. Skylar Diggins game-winning free throws to put the game away for good for the Shock in that contest. And, of course, Washington defeated Indiana 80-63. Tamika Catchings, DNP, sore back and also missing the preseason field as well. And also, folks, on WNBA.com, there's a brand new feature up of new Mystic players. That'd be Bria Hartley and the ever hilarious Stephanie Dolson, now up to watch on WNBA.com as the UConn duo and rookies packed up their old UConn dorm room to make their way down to our nation's capital. Shorty, again, I was kind of, surprised and shocked when the Storm did deal Hartley to Washington to sort of reignite that dynamic duo status of Hartley and Dolson. Shorty, I mean, does this move, though, in your mind, make the Mystics better for the season, or does it make them miss the postseason, perhaps? I still have them penciled in right now as a 3 seed right now in that Eastern Conference controlled by the Sky and Dream. So what do you make of the Mystics right now?
The Mystics are a pretty tough team to try to figure out at the moment. I mean, there's a lot going on in the East. Of course, the East this year may not be predominantly better than the West in the Western Powerhouse Conference, but the East will definitely be interesting this year, as well as the Mystics. I mean, you have the Sky, who will be one of the top teams this year. You have New York, who will be on the rise. You have Atlanta Dream, who will always be in the mix. But it's definitely interesting with that fourth spot, that fourth seed. Now this year, I had the Indiana Fever penciled in at the fourth spot, but for all these recent injuries been hitting them so far, so I'm not sure. I think the Mystics may have a chance this year, with the recent moves that they have made, they can possibly get in that fourth spot this year.
Shorty, I'm going to stay with you real quick because I wanted to kind of touch base on this one real quick. And Shorty, I don't think there's one player, I think, in the WNBA from this draft class that I'm going to have more fun watching than Stephanie Dolson, because she's a player that, I mean, you know, she grinds out there on the court, she plays her game, but at the same time, you know, she's got that side that I wish all athletes had, which was the you know, the humor side, the little outgoing personality sort of standpoint. And I think that's kind of what separates her from some players, at least, and that puts her in my top 10 of players, I think, now in the WNBA, because, you know, of her personality. And you know, you don't get a lot of athletes nowadays, Shorty, that are like that. You know, that'll call out President Obama, you know, to have a little dance off, you know. And I mean, you know, it's going to be fun, I think, to watch Washington play with her, specifically for Dolson, for Hartley, and also for Ivory Latta. But I mean, Shorty, I mean, don't you kind of wish so sometimes that some pro athletes that would have that sort of that softer side, I guess you can kind of say, you know, the humor, you know, the TV show appearances, calling out the president for a dance-off. I mean, what do you make about Stephanie Dolson? Not just her game on the court, Shorty, but also her off-the-court presence.
I just want to say that I love Stephanie Dolson's off-the-court presence. I mean, she is so outgoing. She is so live. She is definitely entertaining. Her and Ivory Latta together is just going to be insane laughs throughout this WNBA season. And yes, I do wish that some players would be more outgoing and just show the fans, you know, a little bit more of their softer side. You know, they don't have to have their game face on all the time. It's okay to have it on court, but off court, you know, you can let your guard down and show the fans, you know, your wild side. I think the Sparks did a great job of that last year with all of their videos that they had with CJ's close-ups and all of the interviews that they had on TWC. They just let their guard down, showed their softer side, and the Mystics will definitely be that team this year to do so.
We will not revisit the Sparks pole dancing video or photos on. So we're gonna sweep that one underneath the carpet. But Chris, like I say a lot though, and I'm gonna stand by. I'm gonna stick by my H3 guns here, Chris. Is show me some other athlete other than Hector Santiago from the Angels, Chris, that will take the time out of their day to sort of drop their hands a bit here and not be like this every single day, and will actually talk to their fans on Twitter. You know, follow us back on Twitter for the petition or art edits that we've done. You know, Chris, that's why the WNBA, in my view, is so much better, Chris, because they have all the, you know, all the all-access videos on YouTube, you know, all the little behind-the-scenes gimmicks, and all the players, Chris, are just so outgoing and so down-to-earth. And again, Chris, I wish every athlete in every sport was the same way, but I know they're not going to be, because they think they're above the world, and, you know, championship rings are, you know, the size of the globe, and the fans like, you know, a grain of sand. You know, so what do you think about that?
Yep, agreed. WNBA is way better, and mostly all the WNBA players like to tweet back to their players and followers.
You know, folks, you guys can rag us out on Twitter. You know, you guys know our Twitter handles. You can say that we suck for watching the WNBA and this and that. We should be, you know, run over in the parking lot at Staples Center. But until we see another athlete from another sport actually talk to their fans on Twitter, we're sticking by our H3 guns and saying that the WNBA beats every other sport as far as goes with social media interaction. Okay, guys, we got a minute left here. We have to break the best news of the night. We are breaking the names and breaking down the formats of our 3 new shows debuting on Friday, May 16th. And, guys, we're going to have a little bit of a panel discussion show to begin our coverage, or actually follow our coverage, actually, on May 16th, folks. So be sure you guys join our panel of 365 correspondents for a half hour of roundtable discussion, news, debate, game previews, Twitter fan polls, and much more on the roundtable show, named in honor of the first Arena of Sparks played-in, folks. Be sure to join in on the Fabulous Form, debuting on May 16th, following our post-game show next Friday, May 16th. Guys, this is something that I think we need to implement here is sort of something like this where we actually have more than 3 people in the hangout at least. We're going to work on that as well. But, Shorty, what do you think, though? I mean, we got to have a roundtable sort of discussion show here on the entire Sparks of the WNBA. What do you make of it?
I think that is a great idea, and it would be a great addition to you guys' network. Have a panel discussion show where we discussing different various topics of the league, plus what happens during different game days and different Sparks matches that they have against various opponents. I think it'll be a great addition to the network.
Chris, I know you were kind of giddy, and you gave me the thumbs up real quick when I told you about this show again. But again, man, what do you think here? Again, panel discussion. We did a lot of roundtables, on the Sports Lounge a while back, man. But hey, we got roundtable discussions, we got news, debate, controversy, game previews, Twitter fan polls, and much more, man. And hey, you got to name the show after the first game the Sparks played, man, back in '97. And hey, Magic Johnson played at the Forum, so come on now.
Yep, just great additions to the show, networks, and yeah, gonna be awesome debut on the season opener, May 16th.
So again, folks, the Fabulous Forum, the Sparks 365 correspondent roundtable discussion, news, debate, controversy, game preview, Twitter fan polls, and much more, all on the Fabulous Forum, debuting next Friday, May 16th, in 10 days on the LA Sparks 365 network. Okay, guys, we'll take our first break of the night, and hopefully Chris can figure out his phone issues right now at the studio so we can show off some tweets and IG photos and emails, folks, because we got Sparks Fam coming up next here on the LA Sparks 365 network. But Shorty Mama 24 on Twitter, thank you so much for joining us again like normal. We'll talk to you again sometime soon, and hopefully we'll see you in 10 days on opening night watching the game, and we'll see you on the Fabulous Forum perhaps on May 16th after the game ends.
I'd like to thank you guys for having me, and yes, I am pumped, ready for the season. May 15th, it's going down.
The turn up will be real, folks, in our off-air hangout on opening night, May 16th in Seattle, Washington. But again, folks, we'll take our break here. When we come back, tweets, Instagram photos, emails, more on the #1 show on the network, folks. Sparks Fam is up next right here on the LA Sparks 365 network. So, folks, don't go away.